Welcome to Vintage Homey, where cozy meets charm. In today's video, we're diving into the heart of autumn with 12 vintage-inspired decor hacks to transform your space into a rustic romantic haven. Think warm hues, nostalgic textures, and timeless pieces that evoke the crisp, cozy feel of fall. Whether you're sprucing up your living room or creating an inviting porch, these ideas blend vintage aesthetics with autumn's natural beauty. From repurposed treasures to handmade accents, we'll show you how to craft spaces that feel both elegant and snug. Grab a pumpkin spice latte, and let's get started with these delightful decor tips. Transform an old wooden ladder into a stunning autumn display. Lean it against a wall, its weathered rungs draped with burlap garlands and cascading faux maple leaves in burnt orange and crimson. Hang vintage mason jars filled with fairy lights for a warm glow, and tuck in dried wheat stalks for texture. The ladder's rustic charm feels like a countryside barn, blending nostalgia with fall's earthy tones. Place a woven basket at the base, overflowing with mini pumpkins and pinecones, to anchor the look. This setup is perfect for a cozy corner or entryway, evoking a sense of timeless warmth that invites guests to linger. Repurpose an old suitcase into a charming coffee table centerpiece. Stack a few vintage suitcases, their leather edges worn and patina rich, and top them with a lace doily for delicate contrast. Arrange amber glass bottles with dried lavender and pampas grass for a soft, romantic touch. Scatter small gourds and acorns around for an autumnal feel. The suitcase's nostalgic vibe, paired with the earthy tones of fall, creates a cozy, lived-in atmosphere. Perfect for a living room, this vignette feels like a treasure from a bygone era, inviting stories and warmth into your space. Elevate your porch with vintage lanterns filled with autumn magic. Place weathered metal lanterns on steps or tables, their glass panes reflecting soft candlelight. Fill them with pine cones, cinnamon sticks, and faux cranberries for a festive touch. Drape nearby railings with burlap ribbons and ivy garlands. The lantern's glow casts a warm, inviting ambience, perfect for crisp autumn evenings. Their rustic patina feels like an heirloom, blending seamlessly with fall's natural elements. This setup creates a romantic, nostalgic porch that beckons guests to enjoy the season's cozy charm. Turn woven baskets into rustic wall art for a cozy autumn touch. Hang a collection of vintage baskets in various sizes on a living room wall, their earthy tones complementing fall's palette. Intersperse dried wheat sheaves and faux sunflowers for pops of color and texture. The basket's natural weave adds warmth and depth, evoking a farmhouse aesthetic. This display feels handmade and timeless, transforming a plain wall into a focal point. Pair with a plaid throw on a nearby sofa to complete the cozy, vintage-inspired autumn ambience. Create a gallery wall with antique picture frames for a vintage autumn vibe. Use mismatched frames in gold and wood, their patina adding character. Fill some with pressed autumn leaves or burlap squares, and leave others empty for an eclectic look. Arrange them asymmetrically on a dining room wall, paired with a rustic chandelier. The frame's aged elegance, combined with fall's natural elements, feels both romantic and nostalgic. This setup transforms your space into a cozy retreat, perfect for autumn gatherings with a timeless, heirloom-like charm. Layer vintage quilts for a cozy autumn bedroom. Drape a patchwork quilt in warm reds, oranges, and browns over a neutral bedspread. Add a plaid wool blanket for texture and a knitted throw for softness. Place a small wooden crate at the bed's foot, filled with pumpkins and dried corn husks. The quilt's handmade charm and rich fall colors create a snug, nostalgic retreat. This setup feels like a countryside cabin, inviting you to curl up with a book on crisp autumn nights, wrapped in layers of vintage warmth. Style a bookshelf with vintage autumn accents. Line shelves with old hardcover books, their spines faded for a nostalgic touch. Add small pumpkins, acorns, and moss balls for natural texture. Place a brass candlestick with a tapered candle for elegance. Drape a burlap runner across one shelf, letting it hang unevenly for a casual vibe. The mix of literary charm and fall elements creates a cozy, intellectual nook. This setup feels like a vintage library, perfect for sipping cider and diving into a classic novel on a chilly autumn afternoon. Craft a rustic mason jar chandelier for a dining area. Hang vintage mason jars from a wooden beam, each fitted with a small bulb for a warm glow. Wrap the beam with twine and faux ivy for a natural touch. Add dried orange slices and cinnamon sticks inside the jars for an autumnal scent and look. The chandelier's soft light and rustic materials create a romantic, farmhouse-style ambience. Perfect for fall dinners, this piece feels both handmade and timeless, casting a cozy glow over your gatherings. Use old wooden crates as floating shelves for a rustic autumn display. Mount them on a wall, their weathered wood adding character. Style with vintage teacups, small pumpkins, and dried lavender bundles. Add a string of fairy lights for a soft glow. The crate's worn texture and fall accents create a cozy, nostalgic vibe, perfect for a kitchen or hallway. This setup feels like a countryside market stall, blending practicality with autumn's charm, making your space feel warm and inviting. Elevate your dining table with a vintage plaid table runner in autumn hues. Choose a runner in deep reds and oranges, its soft fabric adding warmth. Pair with mismatched vintage plates and amber glassware. Center a wooden tray filled with pine cones, candles, and faux berries for a rustic touch. The plaid's classic pattern feels nostalgic, evoking memories of cozy fall gatherings. This setup transforms your dining area into a welcoming space, perfect for hearty autumn meals shared with loved ones, blending vintage charm with seasonal beauty. Repurpose vintage tin cans into charming vases for an autumn tablescape. Wrap cans in burlap and twine, then fill with dried wheat, sunflowers, and eucalyptus. Arrange them in a cluster on a dining or side table, their rustic metal contrasting with the soft blooms. The can's weathered look adds a nostalgic, farmhouse feel, while the autumnal flowers bring warmth. This budget-friendly hack feels handmade and heartfelt, perfect for adding a cozy, vintage touch to any room, evoking the simplicity of countryside living. Transform your fireplace mantel into an autumnal focal point. Drape a burlap garland across the mantel, interspersed with faux maple leaves and fairy lights for a warm glow. Add vintage candlesticks in mismatched metals, paired with small pumpkins and pine cones. Place a distressed wooden sign with a fall quote for charm. The mantel's rustic elements and soft lighting create a cozy, nostalgic ambience, perfect for chilly evenings. This setup feels like a vintage countryside retreat, inviting you to gather around the fire with loved ones. That's all the ideas for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more ideas like this.